if you have a question like this, or if you get a question like this, and you are asked to factorize it by grouping, what does that mean? So factorizing by grouping means before you can do anything to your expression, you have to group your terms, or you have to take your terms and put them in a group. And what do you mean by a group? A group is simply a set of fractions. So what you have to do is take your first two terms and put them in brackets. Then take the next two terms and put them in brackets. So basically grouping is just taking your terms and putting them inside the brackets. Then after doing that, take each group or take each set of brackets and factorize it separately. Now, to factorize the first group, we are going to take x outside the brackets because x appears here and x appears here. So we are going to take it outside the brackets. We are not going to take any number outside the brackets because if we can look at this closely, there's a coefficient of 1 here. So the highest factor of 1 and 3 is 1. So there is no need for us to write the 1 outside the brackets. Then after doing that, you take everything that is inside your brackets and divide it by what is outside the brackets. Then you continue and do the same thing this side. There's a 1 here, but the 1 is not written. So look for a factor of 3 and 1. And that factor is still 1. So I'm not going to write that one. Then the next thing, look at a common variable that appears in both terms. And that common variable is z. So it means you're going to take your z outside the brackets, then you are going to take everything that is inside your brackets and divide it by what is outside the brackets. Then after doing that, simplify your brackets. So simplify what is inside our brackets. We are going to get here, the x is still there. It's not going anywhere. Then this x cancels that x because if you have like terms, they cancel out. Or alternatively, if your denominator and your numerator are the same, they cancel out. So it means here we are left with a 3. Then we go this side, we do the same thing. The x's, they cancel each other. So it means here we are left with a y. Then we continue to the other group or to the other set of brackets. We still have our z there. Now, let's simplify what is inside the brackets. This z is going to cancel that z. So it means now we are left with a 3 here, and then the same thing happens, that z cancel that z. So it means now we are left with your y. Now, if we can look at what we have inside the brackets now, look closely at what we have inside the brackets. What we have in both brackets is the same. What we have inside both brackets is the same. And that's what you are supposed to get. You're supposed to get the same terms or the same numbers, the same variables inside your brackets. If that's not the case, it means you have made a mistake. So you have to go back and redo your problem again. Now, the last step will then be take that set of brackets that is the same and put it here, and then open another set of brackets. Then in that set of brackets, you are now going to insert or put what is remaining outside your 2 brackets. So it means now inside this set of brackets, we are going to have x plus z. And then that's it. That's how you factorize by grouping. I'm now going to do another example. Let's take 3x squared plus 2x plus 12x plus 8. Then factorize by grouping. Now, usually in your examinations, in your tests, sometimes the question can be specific and say factorize by grouping. Or sometimes a question can just come and say factorize. And then you are supposed to know that you are supposed to know which method you are going to use. Then I'm going to give you a clue. When are you using factorizing by grouping? The clue that I'm going to give you is, when are you going to use the factorizing by grouping? Now, usually, in most cases, it's not always the case. It's not always the case, but usually, whenever you have four terms, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4. Usually when you have 4 terms, you are going to factorize by grouping. But please, please, please get this right. It's not like it's always like that. It's not 100% always like that. But I'm saying most of the time, if you have 4 terms, you are going to factorize by grouping. Then we now group our terms. We group our terms. And I said to group is just to open a set of brackets. Take your first 2 terms, put them inside the brackets. Take the next 2 terms, put them inside the brackets. Then factorize each set of brackets separately. Now, factorizing the first bracket, we get x, 3x plus 2. Then factorizing the next set of brackets, we get, what is the highest common factor of 12 and 8? The highest common factor of 12 and 8 is 4. So it means we put the 4 outside the bracket, and then here we have the 3x plus the 2. I've skipped some steps deliberately because I want to believe that by now you should know how to factorize. Just simple factorizing. That factorizing that we did in the previous video, where we are factorizing and where we're learning how to factorize just a simpler algebraic expression. Now, this is what we have. This is what we now have. Remember, I said, if you have done it correctly, what is inside your brackets? What is inside your 2 brackets has to be the same. So we have 3 plus 2 in both brackets. So it means what we have done is correct. Then the last step that you have to do is take that set of brackets that is the same, put it here. You only take 1 bracket, put it there. Then open another bracket and insert what is left outside your brackets. And then we are going to put x plus 4 here. And that's it. I will also do another example. Now let's look at 2x squared minus 5x minus 2x plus 5. We do the same thing. We are factorizing by grouping. Because we have 4 terms, there is a high possibility that the method that we are going to use here is factorizing by grouping. But remember what I said, it's not always the case that whenever you have 4 terms, you're going to factorize by grouping. But most of the time, if you have 4 terms, you are going to factorize by grouping. So we are going to take the first 2 terms, put them inside the brackets, take the next 2 terms, put them inside the bracket, then factorize each set of brackets separately. Now, factorizing the first bracket, we are going to take x outside the bracket. And the reason why we are taking x outside the bracket is because we have an x here and we have an x here. The common variable always goes outside the brackets. Because we have X here and X here. So it means we need another X outside the bracket, or we have to put an X outside the bracket. Then we take everything that is inside the bracket and divide it by what is outside the brackets. And we do the same this side. Now, if you go this side, if you look at this side, the common factor of 2 and 5, the highest common factor of 2 and 5 is going to be 1. Then we have a variable here, variable X, but we don't have a variable X here. So which means variable X is not going outside the bracket. So which means what is going outside the bracket is a 1. And now here you have to write your 1. Because if you can look at the previous examples that I've been doing, I have not been writing 1 because it was not necessary for you to write the 1. But here it is necessary for you to write the 1 because there is the highest common factor of 2 and 5. There is only one highest common factor of 2 and 5, and that is 1. So you have to write it. So you can't leave it. You can't leave that place blank. So you have to write that 1. Then you take everything that is inside the brackets. We do the same thing. Take everything, your 2x plus 5, divided by what is outside the bracket, which is your 1. Then simplify your expression. So simplifying here, we still have our x. Then here, the x cancels. X squared divided by x, we get an x. So it means here we are left with a 2x. And then this side, the x cancels the x, because the numerator and the denominator, they're the same, so they're going to cancel out. So it means here we are left with a 5. Then minus, we still have our 1 there. Then everything that is divided by 1 remains the same. That's a universal mathematics rule. So anything that you divide by 1, it remains the same. So it means here we have our 2x and 2x plus 5. So like I was saying, what is inside our brackets is the same. So it means what we have done is correct. So we now go and do the last step. Then the last step is take that set of brackets that is the same, put it here. Then open another set of brackets and insert what is left outside the brackets in both brackets. So what is left is then x minus 1. So remember what I said when we started this topic. I said, if you have factorized correctly, the final answer that you get should be in such a way that if you expand it, you are going to get the initial expression or the initial question that you were given. So if we expand this 2x plus 5 multiplied by x minus 1, we should get this. So if we don't get that, so it means what we have done is wrong. So that's, if you have time, maybe in your exams, in your test, you can quickly cross-check your answer to see if what you got will give you the initial expression that you were given. Now, I'll then do the last example. But wait, before I go and do the last example, I see a little error here that I've made. And I think I like this error because most of the students are going to make this kind of error. So I'm kind of glad that I also made this kind of mistake so that I can help you to avoid the same mistake when you are in your examination. Now, look at where I made a mistake. look at this sign and this sign. The other side, you have a minus. The other side, we have a plus. So which means what is inside the brackets, it looks the same, but because the signs are different, so it means that two different things. Now, we were not supposed to have a plus here. I don't know if there's something that is coming to your mind, why it's like that. I don't know if you are thinking of something. I don't know if something is coming to your mind, why it's like that. The reason why I wrote a plus here is because I forgot the fact that whenever you have a minus sign, it is going to change the sign inside your bracket. I think I've been mentioning that quite a lot in the previous videos. So if you have a minus sign outside the bracket, it should change the sign that is inside the bracket. So we have a minus here, we have a plus here. So which means this sign, it shouldn't be a plus. It should now be a minus. So I will correct that. So we are supposed to have a minus here. Now, be very careful. So it means we are going to correct here. We are going to have another minus there, because what is inside the bracket is both 2x minus 5. Is both 2x minus 5. Now, be very careful. Be very careful. Whenever you see a minus sign in your equation, be very careful. Think about what a minus sign does or how it changes your equation. So like in this case, we are saying if you have a minus sign in front of a number, it is going to change the sign. I mean, if you have a minus sign in front of bracket, it is going to change the sign that is inside the bracket. So in most examinations, in most tests, examiners and teachers, we like giving you questions that have a minus, because we know that a lot of you are going to make the previous mistake that I made, and you're going to miss it. So be very careful. Be very careful. So I will do the last example. Let's do 5x squared plus 40x minus x minus 8. So we have two minus signs there in our equation. So be careful. Be very careful. Be very careful. So we are factorizing by grouping. We are going to take the first two terms, put them inside the brackets, and then we are going to do the same for the next two terms. We're also going to put them inside the brackets. Then we're going to factorize. The brackets separately. So factorizing the first bracket, we are first going to look at a factor of 5 and 40. The highest common factor of 5 and 40, and that is 5. And then we have a variable, we have a variable x here and a variable x there. So we have variable x appearing in both our terms. So it means variable x has to go outside the brackets as well. Then from there, we take everything that is inside the brackets, 5x squared plus 40x, then we divide it by what is outside the brackets. Then we move on to this side. We look for, there is a 1 here. There is a 1 here, but the 1 is not returned. So it means you have to look for the highest common factor of 1 and 8. The highest common factor of 1 and 8. And that common factor is 1. And then we only have x in the first term. We only have x in the first term, but we don't have x this side. So which means we are not taking any variable outside the bracket. So which means now we can take everything that we now have in our brackets and divide it by what we have outside. Now, before we do that, remember what I just said about the minus sign, that the minus sign changes the sign that is, the minus sign changes. If you have a minus sign in front of your bracket, it changes the sign inside the bracket. So which means here we need to have a plus 8 because we have a minus here. So minus is going to change the sign. So it is going to be a plus. Then we can now continue and simplify our expression. It means we still have our 5x here. This 5 cancels this 5. X squared divided by x, we get an x, then plus 40 divided by 5. 40 divided by 5, we get an 8. Then this x cancels that x because they are like terms. And we said like terms cancel each other, or if the numerator and the denominator are the same, they cancel out. Then we go this side. We still have our 1 there. Then we are dividing the x plus 8. We are dividing it by 1. So like I said earlier, anything or everything that you divide by 1 remains the same. So it means we now have x plus 8 this side. So what is inside the brackets here is the same as what is inside the brackets there. So then the last thing that we do is we take that set of brackets that is the same, we put it here, then we open another set of brackets and we put what is remaining outside our brackets, which is 5x minus 1. And that's it.